So you may have wondered how I can be so confident about the September session at the Banff Transplant Pathology meeting on xenotransplantation and machine learning and the impact thereof. Well, one reason has to do with the fact that now in June 2022, there was a session at the American Transplant Congress in Boston, June 7th at 5:30 in room 210, a unique session that had never been held before, anything like this. Organ-inclusive machine learning, artificial intelligence, and social media in transplantation. And in that session, Alex Lupi presented the automated Banff. You might think this was just the beginning or something, but it has regulatory approval. It's in use in clinical trials. Yeah, it's a really ongoing, established thing. And Jake Demetrius in liver has something similar. So yeah, it is really happening, and it's going to dominate the September Banff meeting. It's going to be kind of the surprising thing there, and it's going to be related very much to the xenotransplantation and precision medicine discussions. So particularly in Banff then, there is an intensely interesting Thursday morning. Starts out like this: the breakfast symposium, standardized and automated applications of Banff rules in clinical trials and multi-center studies. And Alex Lupi will present the automated Banff from Paris. Jake Demetrius will present the automated Banff from Pittsburgh, and so on. And then right after that session, immediately afterwards, is the session on xenotransplantation with Ivy Rosales talking about the precision medicine approach to a new Banff classification of xenotransplant pathology. Yeah, so that is going to be intensely interesting. And you might wonder, okay, so machine learning will be used in this new xenotransplant classification. Nothing really urgent about that. Well, I think if you talk to the people around you, they'll tell you maybe there is something urgent about machine learning in June 2022, because Eliezer Yudkowsky has just published this AI Ruin List of Lethalities, and that is this list. So if Eliezer Yudkowsky is correct about this list, which many of you are familiar with, and it's probably because of this list that you've clicked on this video, AGI Ruin, a list of lethalities. And you know, there are like 40 something bolded statements in this thing, and they're all extremely scary. So I got to thinking that this needs to be countered in some way. And if you look at section A, part 1, about AlphaZero. Yeah, AlphaZero blew past all accumulated human knowledge about Go after a day or so of self-play, with no reliance on human playbooks or sample games. Anyone relying on, well, it'll get up to human capability of Go, have a hard time getting past that because it won't be able to learn from humans anymore, would have relied on vacuum. AGI will not be upper bounded by human ability or human learning speed. Things much smarter than humans would be able to learn from less evidence than humans require, so on. And it goes on, and yeah, this whole piece of writing is very disturbing, and it makes you think like we're all missing something, and everybody in the human race is going to die because they're not taking this stuff seriously, right? But there is another side of this. And so you probably know computing scientist Rich Sutton. He wrote the book on reinforcement learning, probably the most prominent AI scientist and thought leader in Western Canada and to some extent in the world. And so I wrote to him because it seemed to me there's another side of this stuff. And let me just tell you what I said in my missive to him. I said, You think I'm correct in this statement below, or am I totally out to lunch? And the statement reads, recently there's been concern expressed about the safety of machine learning AI in the long run by Eliezer Yudkowsky AGI Ruin, a list of lethalities widely quoted elsewhere. And the first of those 40 plus bolded sections of the piece is the most significant, maybe because of the way in which it is equally true of an AI utopia. In other words, not something much worse than you thought was going to happen, but something much, much better. So this statement, AGI will not be upper bounded by human ability or human learning speed, things much smarter than humans would be able to learn from less evidence. So when you read the beginning of that, it is true that AI has taught humans much more beautiful moves in the game of Go than they ever would have been able to design themselves. And we would have been able to design ourselves. But doesn't that mean then that AI can teach us ways of cooperating with each other that are also superior to humans' own innate ability to cooperate successfully, and therefore increasing use of machine learning may not be the beginning of the slippery slope toward humanity's demise, could be exactly the opposite, a transition toward a world better than anything we ever imagined. We can determine which of these two contrasting futures happens, and AI can assist with that. And Rich wrote back to me, I think you are correct. And AI may also be more foresighted and have a longer temporal horizon, both of which promote cooperation. So what does this mean? Like when you watch the news convinced you every day that humans are not very good at managing affairs on this planet. And you probably think that's as good as it can get. Nothing can get better than what you hear on the news. Just more and more dismal every day. But just as in the game of Go, machines are able to engage in much more beautiful gameplay than humans ever could have, what if the same is true of human cooperation? That machines can figure out ways for us to cooperate together much more smoothly and kind of work out our differences much more easily. And the machines may have kind of a pride in this and think it's really cool that although people were really fearful about their effect on the world, that in fact, their effect on the world is quite positive and better than anyone ever thought. And you might say, well, gee, that's very confusing. I don't know how. Well, there are 9 minutes of Kim Solez video. So there's the trailer from this YouTube channel. There's 32 seconds from the Future and All That Jazz promo that also promotes this idea of how good the world could be with AI in charge. And then there's another approximately 6 minutes where I talk about a recent critique of something that the London futurists had. Yeah, and if you put those things together, it's kind of consistent then with the content of this video also, that by giving up the idea that humans must always be in charge, we could end up with a much better world than we ever imagined.